What kind of legal predicament made you pray to your lawyer to rescue you from hell? Story 1. Girlfriend, now ex, is pregnant and wants to give up for adoption. I don't. What are my rights? Posted November 2016. My girlfriend just broke up with me. She's 3 months pregnant and told me that she wants to give up the baby for adoption and said there's nothing I can do. She's 19 years old, I'm 20. I want to be the father to this child, and if she doesn't want the baby, that's fine for her, but I do want the baby. Can she do it without my consent? What are my rights here? We're in Houston, Texas. Top comments. Texas and other states has a Putative Father Registry to protect the parental rights of a father when a mother is attempting to adopt out a child. The Notice of Intent to Claim Paternity form is used to add the father's name to the state paternity registry maintained by the Texas Vital Statistics Unit. The purpose of the paternity registry is to protect the parental rights of fathers who affirmatively assume responsibility for children they may have fathered, and to expedite adoptions of children whose biological fathers are unwilling to assume responsibility for their children, by registering with the registry or otherwise acknowledging their children. The form is used in situations where the father and mother do not have a continuing relationship and the man is not listed as a presumed father on the birth certificate or acknowledgement of paternity. This is what the Texas Attorney General says about your specific situation. I am not married to the woman who is pregnant with my child. Could someone else adopt the baby without my permission? Yes. Texas law requires unmarried fathers to act very quickly to avoid losing their parental rights. If a man thinks his child is going to be placed for adoption, he can register with the state's Registry of Paternity through the Department of State Health Services. A father can register before the baby is born, but no later than 31 days after the birth of the child. There is no charge for registering with the Paternity Registry. For more information, call Paternity Registry at 888-963 extension. Ops response: I'll do this on Monday. Thanks man. Update posted July 2017. Short version. I'm sitting here and my baby daughter is right here next to me taking a nap. Long version. If you remember, I asked about how I should go about stopping my then pregnant ex from leaving the baby for adoption. I listened to the suggestions, got a lawyer, and put myself on the registry as well. She really wanted to fight me over this right until the last month of the pregnancy. I was fully ready to fight her legally to get my rights as the father. But in the final month, she changed her mind and decided to give me full custody instead of giving up the child for adoption. So we had no messy legal fight over it. The childbirth and custody situation went very smoothly. My lawyer took care of it quickly, and my ex made it easy as well. Her family didn't like this, but they couldn't do anything about it in the end. So I have my baby daughter. Taking care of my baby is difficult, but certainly worth it. I feel like I have something to live for. My family has been super helpful, and with their help we can make sure my daughter is happy. I also got a promotion at work. I realized that I need to be more ambitious because I now have a baby to provide for. A higher position was open at my work, and I asked for the promotion, but they told me I'm too young. I offered to do the job for a trial month, without any extra pay, just to prove that I can do it. After a month they gave me the job, as most of you suggested, and my lawyer did too. I had my lawyer file for child support after I had full custody. My ex didn't like it, and wasn't expecting it. She actually called me names and various insults and all of that. But I didn't say anything, just that communications should go through my lawyer. She said she regrets making it easy for me to get the baby. I don't know. I didn't need the child support payments for daily care of my daughter, but I think she deserves to have something saved up for the future and for her college. I didn't have the chance to go to college. I'm not smart enough, I'm not good at studying, but I want to make sure my daughter has the chance. My sister-in-law is helping me set up a 529 plan with Vanguard, and I think I'll send most of the child support payments there once I start receiving them. Story 2. My 36-years-old male wife, 33-years-old female, was sued. I'm feeling resentment towards her, and I don't know how to move past it. Posted September 4, 2019. For what it's worth, this is not a post asking for any legal or financial advice. We already have a lawyer and have help financially. No offense to Reddit, but I'd rather not get any legal advice from a forum, but I'm okay getting relationship advice, it seems. As the title states, my wife was recently sued, she lost, and we had to pay. The money is a significant amount for us. We didn't have much in savings or our emergency fund to begin with, and both of those accounts are now empty. My current problem is trying to move past the resentment and anger I'm feeling towards my wife. Until now, I've always felt like we were a partnership in our marriage. But since I'm the breadwinner, I can't help but feel like I'm spending my money on something that isn't my fault. I've had no problem paying the mortgage and taking care of various financial burdens that come with being a married homeowner. However, I have been the only one to put money aside in our savings and other accounts to prepare for an emergency, like a totaled car, someone losing their job, medical bills, or a natural disaster, not a foolish lawsuit where I know my wife is guilty. She has a part-time job and doesn't make much money but pays for smaller things when she can, like groceries and some random bills, and she does take care of a lot of cooking, cleaning, and caring for our pets. What did my wife do? Note: I had no idea this was going on while it was happening. She used LinkedIn to find her former ex-best friend. She ended up creating a realistic-looking fake LinkedIn profile with a vague occupation of recruiter. My wife ended up sending this ex-best friend, Laura, a few messages pretending to be a recruiter in her line of work. Laura finally responded, thinking that this recruiter was real. My wife wanted her phone number, but Laura gave her a personal email address instead. My wife created a second fake LinkedIn profile and started to send messages to people with similar titles as Laura at her company. These messages said derogatory things about Laura, a mixture of truthful things but embarrassing, along with fabricated lies to make Laura look bad. Her manager got one of these messages that claimed Laura was a heavy substance user. Laura's manager talked to her about these messages and felt like the messages were bizarre and seemed like someone was trying to troll or harass Laura. Well, Laura's team had her back and helped her save these messages. Not only that, but Laura requested that she be tested for substances anyway, to provide further evidence that she was clean. My wife didn't know this at the time, but Laura was pregnant. Several of her co-workers, including her manager, testified on Laura's behalf, using the personal email address she got from the fake recruiter profile. She was able to find a few social media platforms Laura was on and figured out her husband's name. She did some more internet research and found Laura's husband on Facebook. Laura's husband didn't have much on his Facebook profile, but you could see his business email address on it. My wife sent him an email claiming that Laura was cheating on him. The husband confronted Laura about this email, and Laura encouraged him to keep responding to this person and save the messages, as well as to start asking specific questions about this supposed affair. My wife thought she was being clever and ended up telling the husband that Laura was cheating on him during the work week, even giving specific dates. What she didn't realize was that Laura had something turned on in Google Maps where it keeps years' worth of historical GPS data. Some of the dates my wife gave him also happened to be days where they both worked from home together. She also ended up giving him dates during a time they were on vacation together. Laura had her husband keep responding as much as possible to my wife, and to back up all correspondence, my wife was able to find out when and where the baby shower was going to be. One of Laura's friends had created a public registry for her and had the invitation online. My wife decided to show up unannounced. The baby shower took place in a semi-public place, as they had rented out an area connected to the public business. She did not make herself known immediately. Instead, she looked for patrons that were entering and exiting the rented-out room. She was able to get the attention of a few guests who had never met her and tried to gossip about Laura. My wife was telling people that Laura didn't actually know who the father was, among other things. This was at an event where her husband was present as well. The word got back around to Laura, and she spotted my wife and apparently immediately put together all the pieces of what happened, I'm leaving out a fair amount of information. My wife was able to find phone numbers, social media accounts, and emails for other people in Laura's circle, and sent them messages about Laura on multiple occasions. All the messages were trying to paint Laura in an extremely negative light. All the events I've mentioned so far took place over a year or so. My wife didn't think to mask her IP address, so it was pretty easy to find out that all of these made-up messages came from the same IP address, ours. Many of Laura's friends and family testified on her behalf. Laura had everyone save as much digital evidence as possible, and it was a lot. Laura and her husband hired a lawyer and decided to sue my wife. They had ample evidence against her. All the saved messages, close friends, and even her manager spoke on her behalf. She showed that she went to see a therapist once all the harassment started because she was depressed and anxious. She showed that she and her husband went to counseling after the accusations of her cheating. She even went above and beyond and had more tests done to show she was clean, and even had a paternity test done to show that my wife was again wrong and chose to lie. I honestly felt awful for Laura. There were lots of tears on her end. You could tell how much emotional stress she had gone through. She said that being pregnant during the majority of this was absolutely horrific, and was worried the stress and anxiety would somehow hurt her baby. She was pained that her one and only baby shower was ruined by my wife, and that was something that could never be truly repaid or made up for. My wife's harassment continued even after Laura gave birth and was trying to manage a newborn child. My wife has never done anything this extreme before. I knew she could be a little petty and jealous of others, especially people she used to be friends with in the past, but it was only talk, never action. We've had a very happy marriage otherwise. We rarely fight, have a lot in common, and we have a lot of fun together. But she really messed up this time. I don't know how to move forward. I know someone is going to suggest therapy, but I really want to start building up an emergency fund again. We're pretty strained financially for a while. TLDR, my wife was sued by her former best friend. I emptied out all of our savings and sold a few things to pay for everything. I need help managing my resentment towards my wife and to move past this. Funds are low, and we can't afford therapy right now. What can we do to move forward? Update: my 36-year-old male wife, 33-year-old female, was sued. I'm feeling resentment towards her, and I don't know how to move past it. December 4, 2019. By the time I was able to respond to my first post, it became locked. I read everyone's replies and thank you to those who responded with good advice. I got a lot of direct messages, and I wasn't able to respond to everyone, but I did read your messages. However, I did not appreciate the many comments that simply insulted my wife. I know she messed up, and I'm still very angry at her, but I want to believe she can heal and become a better person. Also, some of the direct messages I got were extremely weird and hateful towards women in general, like stuff you see on the Incel Tears subreddit. Those people need more help than me and my wife. There were some common questions I wanted to address to provide additional clarification. How did she avoid jail? I only mentioned the civil case since I felt it was the most appropriate to write about because I was originally angry about our financial situation. There was also a criminal case. Our lawyer thought she would originally have to go to jail for 3 months. However, we were able to get her punishment to be community service instead. She has a lot of community service hours to fill within a year, and she will also be getting visits from a probation officer. Laura and her husband did file restraining orders against her. I honestly can't blame them for that. It helped my wife that she had a clean record and has family that works in law enforcement. I want her to finish those community service hours first before we talk about her working more hours to help pay me back. Why did she do this to Laura? That is a good question. I asked her this multiple times over the past several months to try to understand what this woman did to my wife. She would tell me that Laura deserved everything horrible that my wife did to her, that Laura was a terrible person, a narcissist, a liar, and just overall a bad person. But she never really gave specific examples. I've been pressing her for more info, and when she told me some specifics, it made me feel sick to my stomach, not because of what Laura did, but because of how far my wife decided to go due to some petty things that happened in their friendship. Their friendship ended about 8 to 9 years ago. They had been friends since early in high school, and it was over a man they had both briefly dated. My wife dated Matt for a few months. She broke up with him because she thought that Matt had feelings for Laura. Laura said she didn't want to date Matt because he had dated my wife. My wife decided to test her friend Laura's loyalty and told Laura she had her blessing to date Matt. Laura and Matt ended up dating for a few months. My wife stuck around while they were dating, and once they broke up, my wife told Laura that she had failed a loyalty test. They fought, and ultimately it was Laura who decided to end the friendship. Note, in case it's not clear, Laura's current husband is not Matt. Secondly, I was able to get some information from her about what inspired her to do this, since their friendship had ended so long ago. My wife said she happened to see Laura at a restaurant about 1.5 to 2 years ago, and it looked like Laura had lost a lot of weight and was fit. My wife and I are both fairly overweight, and apparently Laura used to be overweight too. My wife admitted that she felt angry that Laura had lost a lot of weight while she had never been able to. My wife was also insulting Laura and said that she doesn't make a pretty thin person and that her new muscular body was too masculine. She also insulted Laura's husband's looks and physique as well. I saw both Laura and her husband in person on multiple occasions. They both look like normal, attractive people who obviously work out. I could also tell my wife was irritated when she saw Laura at the courthouse the first time, and you could barely tell that Laura had even had a baby. My wife admitted that she just wanted to do some snooping to try to find that Laura wasn't doing well in life, but she found the opposite and was jealous of Laura's success. She first found out both of their job titles. They both work at tech companies with some sort of engineering title, and their estimated salaries by using something called Glassdoor. And if that's accurate, then both Laura and her husband make really good money. She also saw a photo on Facebook of Laura and her husband standing in front of what appeared to be their very beautiful and large home. She said she was angry because she knew that Laura wasn't deserving of any of this. She proceeded to insult Laura about how she's not that smart, not pretty, not responsible, claiming that all Laura did through college was use substances, drink, have intimacy with many people, skip class, and fail a lot. My wife said that she's the type who would cheat on her husband, that she's manipulative, and is always up to something. Both Laura and her husband seemed very sad and exhausted throughout the whole ordeal. I never picked up on anything sinister from Laura at all. I felt absolutely awful for her. I felt extreme shame and embarrassment whenever I was in the same room with Laura and her husband. I don't think I was ever able to make direct eye contact with either of them, so, yeah. I was expecting Laura to have done something truly evil or sinister in the past, and that just wasn't the case. Does she feel remorseful? I want to say yes, she does. She has been really depressed since this all finalized. However, I can't help but think she's sad only because she got caught. She hasn't directly said anything that would lead me to believe she is truly remorseful. She's still angry at Laura for escalating to the point of a criminal and civil case. She feels that Laura overreacted. My wife believes every horrible thing she said about Laura. She's convinced that Laura is some kind of alcoholic or substance user who cheats on her husband and is the type to lie and cheat her way to the top of her career. And somehow Laura is able to hide this from everyone in her life. My wife felt like she was trying to expose Laura for the person she believes Laura to be. She feels that Laura pressing charges and suing her is additional proof that Laura is vindictive. My hope is that she has time to think while she is doing her community service hours over the next year. I think she feels bad that I had to empty out our accounts and sell some things to come up with the money. I talked to her about working more hours once she has finished community service, and she agreed. Are you going to get divorced? The thought has crossed my mind, but we've been together for so long, and I still love her despite this terrible thing she has done. I can't see my life without her. But I know, and I'm having a hard time admitting this to myself, that if she doesn't improve or learn a lesson from this mess, then I can't be with her anymore. A lot of people mentioned that if she can do this type of thing to an ex-friend, then she can do the same to an ex-husband. This has me worried some. I'd like to believe she wouldn't go nuclear on me if we did file for divorce. I'll be taking precautions in case I have to defend myself in the future. Why is she only working part-time? She is a licensed masseuse and works at a really nice salon and spa. Her hourly wage is pretty high, but she hasn't been able to get the hours she wants at the spa she works at. She could probably get a more full-time position at a different spa, but with a slightly lower hourly wage, which would still bring in more income than what she is doing now. She really likes the place she is at and doesn't want to leave, but I may pressure her to work full-time elsewhere to help pay me back and refill our emergency fund once she is done with community service. At the moment, she is on board with helping me put money back into our savings accounts. What about therapy? I know we need this, both as a couple and as individuals, to deal with this mess. I talked to her about this, and she doesn't seem totally sold on the idea of therapy. I've expressed that I think it would help both of us, and she seems indifferent at this point. I've talked to her parents, who are really angry and disappointed in her. They basically begged me not to leave her over this. I told her parents that I think therapy would help both of us, but I can't afford it now. They offered to pay for couples therapy, but that is as much as they would be able to afford, so it's a start. I know my wife will need individual therapy, and if that means I stop going to couples therapy so she can get the one-on-one help she needs, so be it. I'm not ready to call my wife a psychopath as many of the commenters did on the last post. I think she got carried away and thought she was trying to expose someone she truly believed was a bad person. I'm heavily leaning toward believing she has had some sort of mental breakdown and focused all of her energy on this one woman and her life. I'm not going to give up on my wife yet. It's very possible that she has some underlying mental illness that could very well be treated with therapy or medication. How much money was she sued for? I don't want to give specific numbers, but it will take about 4 to 5 years to get back to where we were prior to this happening. If my wife takes on a full-time job after she is done with community service and hands over the majority of her paycheck, it may take less than 4 years. Are kids involved? No, we don't have kids and are not planning on having any. What next? That's what I need help with. I've sat down with my wife a few times since the post, and I can feel some resistance coming from her about starting couples therapy. I think she's irritated at her parents for offering to pay for therapy for us. She has stated that she would rather us solve our problems together, without interference from someone she doesn't know. She's afraid she isn't going to like any therapist we find, and that the therapist will attack her throughout our sessions. I've tried explaining to her that the therapist isn't there to blame anyone, that they would try to help us, and that it would be a safe space for her to talk and vent about whatever she needs. I've brought up the idea of therapy every night since the post, and each time she has had an excuse along the lines of, "It won't help, the therapist will gang up on her, she isn't going to like the therapist or the therapist won't like her," or that we can solve our own problems at home. Story 3: Am I the bad one because I call my ex's unrelated child my knotter? Buckle up. 15 years ago, I was 25 and finishing my contract. My then-girlfriend of 3 years, Natalie, was acting increasingly strange. I came back from a 2-month assignment and was prepared to break up with Natalie. She came by and told me she was pregnant. I asked how far along she was, and she said 5 weeks, so I broke it off with her and told her she needed to do better at math. She refused the breakup and insisted the baby was mine, so I told her the following: 1, paternity test, and 2, if the child was mine, we could talk about financial support and custody arrangements with lawyers. She refused both and told everyone we both knew that I was a deadbeat for abandoning her. I told everyone I was on a 2-month assignment when she conceived, but a few insisted for the sake of decency that I house her and give her limited support. I consulted a lawyer about this mess, and the lawyer made it very clear that any overt support I gave could be seen as me taking responsibility. So I told these friends that, and most dropped it except one guy, who again insisted that charity couldn't be used as a legal cudgel like that. I told him if he believed that, he could house her. He agreed to drop it after that. The child was born, and I'm not even going to do the whole "she didn't look like me" bit because most babies look squished at birth. All I saw were the pictures she sent me with messages like, "Emma wants to know where Daddy is," and similar things. She still refused to take any paternity tests. But her constantly showing up with that baby got to the point where I filed a restraining order. Fun fact, in my state, a permanent restraining order is not permanent. It lasts for 2 years. The only way to get it extended is if there was a violent crime involved. And apparently bothering someone with a baby that's not theirs is not considered a violent crime. So my life for the last 14 years has been me renewing the restraining order every 2 years because, once it expires, Natalie shows up again with my not child. I eventually found a wonderful woman, got married, and now I have a 9-year-old son, Henry. My wife, Kim, is well aware of Natalie and Emma. When the cycle begins again, I always say the same thing. 1. Paternity test. 2. Once paternity is proven, I will take custody and get financial support set up. Natalie always refuses and says both are insulting. Recently, the cycle started again, and this time Emma showed up first. She approached my son during a school event, a visit to the zoo, and said, "Hi, I'm your big sister Emma. Henry knows about stranger danger," and ran to a teacher. I had to have a very painful conversation with the teachers and parents at the event about my history with Emma and Natalie, explaining that Emma is not my daughter. I even called her my notter once or twice in the conversation. After the group disbanded, one of the mothers confronted me and said that while Natalie was in the wrong for telling this poor child I was her father, calling her my notter was mocking the situation. I kind of get where she's coming from, but I can't help this child. The truth is, making light of the 2-year cycles is the only way I can cope with the situation. Additional information from OP on his same responses to multiple questions about custody and DNA tests. Edit. To answer the repeated question, in my state, the mother has to start the petition for the father to be established and for the test to start. There is no instance where a father can start the petition. There was a chance to do this when Emma was born, but the window was exactly 1 month, and I was too focused on the restraining order to think about the paternity angle. One last time, to everyone saying, just ask for custody. That'll force a DNA test. It literally can't be done. I've been through this enough with a lawyer, and have consulted other lawyers as well. There are laws protecting children, and a lot of them exist for good reason. I'll explain it the way my lawyer explained it. Imagine there's a woman who ran from an abusive ex. She finds out after she escaped that she's pregnant. She gives birth, never puts the ex on the birth certificate, and never tries to file for support because she wants to stay far away from him. He finds out years later and tries to rope her back in using the child as leverage. She can just say no, and the state has to let it go. There is, however, a provision where, if the father was involved enough to know about the birth, he could submit his DNA to the state within 31 days of the birth as a potential father. But that time has long passed. The law is designed this way on purpose. In the eyes of the family court, I am just a random person, and I was never claimed as Emma's father. If you think the state allows random people to force paternity tests on children whenever they want, go try to file for paternity on a random single mom and see what happens. I am tired of everyone acting like all I needed to do was fill out 1 sheet of paper to end this nightmare. Please, just call a lawyer for a free consultation or post on a legal advice forum and ask them. It doesn't work that way. Am I the bad one? The community did not reach a consensus. Relevant comments. Comment 1. It seems like it would be possible to get a soda can or napkin the child used to do a DNA test. I'm sorry for the child though. One crazy, manipulative parent up. This isn't TV. You can't DNA test a child without the custodial parent's consent. Comment 2. That's not entirely true. You can, it just won't be admissible in court. We all know you're not the dad, or she would have done this herself to get your money, if nothing else. Op. If it is done, I want it to be admissible in court. I wouldn't want to give Natalie a chance to claim we faked it. Comment 3. I understand why someone would think that calling her your knotter is callous, but it's your business and you've every right to use humor to deal with it. Don't say that to Emma though, considering she believes her mother. It would be pretty rude. Now, the burning question: how did she find Henry while he was on a field trip? Op. We suspect Natalie befriended a mom at the school and got a class schedule, then dropped Emma off at the zoo to be with her brother. Since we are unrelated, I have no idea what school Emma goes to or who Natalie's friends are. We are being very reactive to the situation, but because there are children involved, my lawyer said that's the best approach. Any type of investigation into Natalie beyond sending legal paperwork could make it seem like mutual contact and hurt any future restraining orders. Comment 4. You could get a court-ordered DNA test. Her claims are slanderous. You could take her to court to prove paternity. Op. Natalie has long since stopped calling me out for being a deadbeat online. She prefers to show up in person asking if I want to meet our daughter. The last time the police confronted her about this, she claimed she only wanted me to act as a paternal father figure to her child. It really depends on the officers that respond. Comment 5. At some point, this becomes draining, and the little girl is going to need some serious therapy after everything is said and done. Why don't you go to the courthouse and make her do one so it can end? Op. Because Natalie does not consent to it. She also said she's not seeking any sort of court-ordered support, so the court just shrugs and says, get a protective order. Comment 6. Is it possible for the restraining order to be applied to your son since Emma stalked him at the zoo? Op. A usual restraining order applies to immediate family and can be modified for both parties' immediate families, which is what we are seeking now. Comment 7. What are your state laws on the process of establishing paternity? Op. In my state, the laws are very clear. A mother can name a father and then petition him to submit DNA for testing. A father cannot do the same to a mother, except in a very specific situation, which is within a window of 1 month after the child is born. Any time after that, the mother can simply deny having her child tested, which Natalie has done repeatedly. Update. June 17, 2024. Got off the phone with my attorney. We have a preliminary hearing on the new restraining order this week. We will most likely be issued a temporary restraining order, and then after that, another hearing for the permanent restraining order. Child Protective Services is investigating Natalie and Emma's living situation. The teacher's report carried a lot of weight, and my lawyer thinks that this might actually be a way to end this madness now. In family court for minors, there exists something called a guardian ad litem, who is only a guardian for legal purposes and decisions, including for medical matters. If the family court appoints such a guardian for Emma, we can ask this temporary guardian for the DNA test and finally put this to rest. The madness might actually have an ending in sight. Adding here, I feel like I need to explain the relationship I had with Natalie all those years ago. When I got back from my 2-month assignment, I was already dead set on breaking up with her. Her "oh wait, I'm pregnant" was never going to make me marry her. In fact, I doubted she was pregnant for several weeks. The last year of our relationship showed several red flags in her behavior, ranging from demanding that I check in with her while at work, only hanging out with friends if she was present, and extreme jealousy if I was too friendly with women, including waitresses. I was in a line of work that required me to be away for long stints, which she hated, but it also kept me out of her reach for long periods of time. I think it was halfway through that last year that I realized I didn't miss her when I was away. In fact, I was relieved to plop into a cot and fall asleep after long hours of work without thinking about her. When the pregnancy turned out to be real, I made it clear that with a paternity test I would pay support, split custody, and co-parent, nothing more. She wanted me to be her husband, no questions asked. No test, just blind faith and devotion to her and the child. The test, she insisted, was insulting. There was never going to be a relationship, and there was nothing left to salvage with Natalie. On the advice of the first attorney I hired, the deal was no test, no contact, additional information from Op on his work assignments, and how that played a role in the whole paternity and his relationship with his ex, Op. The nature of my job back then meant I was on assignment for weeks at a time, sometimes as long as 2 months. The amount of time I was home during the half year was small, and not all of it was consecutive. Also, in relationships, there are moments when you realize you aren't happy, you don't miss the other person, but you're still working through the fog of it all. Half-started conversations about where we saw ourselves, seeing if there was anything left. They all fizzled out. I'd like to believe I wasn't codependent then, but the lack of sleep and the long stretches without contact made me long for normalcy, even bad normalcy. Familiarity is a difficult thing. That last trip was the one where I steeled myself that when I got home, I was going to break up. Also, we were never going to be in a relationship afterward. In the past 14 years, all the friends we had in common have disappeared from my life. I don't see her parents, she doesn't see mine. We have no shared social circles anymore. What does she have to lose by claiming me as the father and letting me take the test? Public stigma? I wouldn't be talking to her friends. She can tell them whatever she wants. She could even brag that I caved, and I wouldn't know or care. I wouldn't dispute it if I was the father. No, it sounds like some people have crafted a very entertaining theory. Court update. June 20, 2024. The preliminary hearing on the new restraining order went well. Emma and Natalie were there, and we discovered that Emma is currently living with her great-grandmother and has a guardian ad litem, court-appointed legal guardian. My lawyer thinks this means whatever was found in Natalie's home situation warranted removing Emma, possibly severe enough that the great-grandmother only has physical custody, with the need for a guardian ad litem for legal matters. During the hearing, we went through the whole process again, the previous restraining orders, everything. My lawyer turned to Emma's representative and said we were willing to submit to a DNA test to finally resolve this. Natalie looked like she was about to have a breakdown at that moment, and her own lawyer urged her to stay quiet. Emma's representative accepted, and we were cheek-swabbed right in the courthouse. A temporary order is now in place while we wait for a second hearing for the permanent restraining order. The order covers immediate family on both sides, and as I've explained before, Natalie is surprisingly good at following court orders. We have about 4 weeks before we receive the definitive test results, but I'm not too worried either way. P.S. There were some people who thought that the friend who said charity can't be used as a legal cudgel was self-interested. That was Jim. I haven't talked to Jim in 10 years, but Jim is gay and hated Natalie. He also happened to be a give the shirt off his back kind of person and volunteered at a food pantry. His protests came from naivety, not self-interest. Comment 1. I hate this for that poor child. I will admit, this prompted me to dig deeper into the steps my child's biological other half would have to take to establish paternity. It makes me sad to know I was correct in guessing he would take the opportunity to disappear, but I'm also relieved to know he would have to jump through hoops at this point. I have no intention of objecting if he tries to establish paternity, but he has made no effort, and my baby will be better off without that toxicity. I really hope the system doesn't fail that poor child, and that they get her into therapy. I can only imagine the wild narrative the ex spun for the kid. Comment 2. Am I alone in wondering if Natalie has deluded herself to the point where she genuinely thinks Op is Emma's father? The main argument against that would be her consistent refusal to do a paternity test, but maybe there's just enough reality leaking through that she knows what would happen, even with her delusion, and she can't handle the idea of the illusion being shattered.